Hi there, this is Ronnie coming at you with a video. About 5 years ago, I did a list of top 5 RPGs. It was one of the first videos I actually did, and I was fairly happy with my list at the time. But over the last 5 years, I've played a lot of different games, and I wanted to do an update to show sort of where my top 5 is now. Um, some might be a surprise, some might not. I don't think the number one game will be a surprise to anyone, but Um, so let's kick it off. And in number 5, always feel I should have Led Zeppelin's Whole Lot of Love, just that Jimmy Page riff going in the background. For people who used to watch Top of the Pops in the 70s, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Number 5 is True 20. I'm also going to sort of bring in the Blue Rose game, which uses this rule set, because I think it's relevant. I like True 20 a lot. I don't think it's perfect, which is why it's not as high up as others. But I find the combat exceptionally quick, which is good. I found it very good for doing horror, which I like. I would like to have seen more done with the powers. Of all the kind of genres, I think the one where it really falls down on would be superheroes. But as that's not exactly my area of expertise, I'm not particularly bothered. Great system, easy to use. Takes the D20 OGL and just strips it to the bare bones. It's fast, it's quick, it's a nice generic system. Blue Rose is a game of romantic fantasy. It's a very good system. I enjoy using it. I have some other settings as well. I've got Shadows of Cthulhu, which was okay actually. Wasn't perfect, but it was okay. I've got Mechagenesis, which is basically, we couldn't get the Transformers license, so here's something like it. I do have Lux Aetonum, which I desperately want to run, but I'm looking forward to doing that. So that's my number 5. And in number 4, this really shouldn't surprise anyone that it's in here. That's Dragon Age. Now, as with True 20, I'm also going to add Blue Rose Age, which is the second edition of Blue Rose, in this discussion. I like the Age engine. The Age engine, I think, is a wonderful, wonderful system. And I still stand by my opinion that Dragon Age is, without a doubt, in my opinion, the best beginner's system I have ever seen. Easy to play, easy to teach, and if someone's actually played the video games, they can just drop into that world no problem. If I have a slight quibble about it, it's a quibble I have with so many systems, which is it uses levels and hit points rather than skill increase and wounds. But that's a minor quibble. And also, it has to be said, and this is true of Blue Rose as well, all the book you need. Player information, GM's information, bestiary, campaign setting, all one book. Wizards of the Coast et al. Take a note. Joint second. Cult. Yeah. I don't really need to say much about this beauty. It's still, in my opinion, the best horror game out there. I know everyone likes Call of Cthulhu, and I do like Call of Cthulhu. Don't get me wrong. It's just not in my five. Because ultimately, I would have to make a choice between Call of Cthulhu and Cult, and Cthulhu's never going to win against Cult for me. As someone sort of marked, the difference between the two is Cthulhu is you are people sort of trying to survive in an unfeeling, uncaring universe, where you might come across beings who literally look upon you as sort of ants to be squashed. You know, they look upon you with cold indifference. Whereas with Cult, the beings in Cult hate you and want you to suffer. And seriously want to mess your life up. It's a lot darker, it's a lot more mature. It is a game that I cannot and will never bring to my friendly local gaming store. I did something sort of Cult light using True 20. It went down very well, but Cult is always going to win it for me. And the other joint second, Savage Worlds. The more I'm using Savage Worlds, the more I'm loving it. It's not going to take the top spot away from, the number one. But I have bought a fair amount of campaign settings for this now, sort of general ones and specifics. Someone did a very, very good fan-based Star Wars game, which is Star Wars, Savage Worlds just fits Star Wars right in there. Love the system. Some people don't like the bennies. I do. I find them a wonderful way of sort of working. I find the it's one of those games where I've seen 4 first-level adventurers taking on 20 goblins in, say, Pathfinder or D&D, and you're going to be there a couple hours, folks. I've done 4 adventurers with 20 against 20 before, with Savage Worlds, and it took about an hour. And that's with an awful lot of faffing about. Very simple system. Can take a little getting used to if you're not used to, a little off the beaten track. But I like it. I'm running. I've ran superpowers with it, which wasn't my area of expertise, but the system worked very well for it. I'm running fantasy at the moment. Shine Tower is just extraordinarily good. I'm looking to run sort of urban fantasy, horror. I've got the Contagion campaign setting, which I desperately want to run. I've got steampunk. I've ran sci-fi with The Last Parsec. Loved that. Really worked well. I would say it somewhat favours pulp action over sort of existential dread, but it works. It's a very good system, and it works a treat. And it just works. And number one, still the undefeated, undiluted champion, Castle Falkenstein. Anyone who's watched my videos to any great extent will know that I love this game. And anyone who's watched my videos to any great extent will not be surprised that it's still number one. Beautiful, elegant rule system that uses playing cards rather than dice. I would say it was actually quite rules light. Once people get into the rhythm of it, you can pretty much forget about the rules. You just get into it. Does it have more of a storytelling rather than an adventuring mechanic? That's an argument for other people. All I do know is character creation is exceptionally quick, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful system. I find it very easy to come up with scenarios. The amount, and this is true of Savage Worlds as well, the amount of bookkeeping I don't have to do. As a GM. Is just, immense. I suppose if I were going to mention, so that's my top 5. I was going to mention some honourable mentions. Pendragon, which was in my original top 5, is still a great game. Call of Cthulhu is a great game. It just, and I'll happily play it. In terms of background, I mean, the mechanics, I would have were a little, I'd have to play a game or two of it. But in terms of background, there's a couple of games I've played, I don't own, but I've played that I enjoyed, which were Corporation, which I enjoyed a lot. I do have, funnily enough, for Savage Worlds, I do have a cyberpunk setting called Interface Zero, which I ran and I enjoyed thoroughly. Gonna run that again. Yeah, I enjoyed playing Corporation. I also enjoyed a game called Shadows of Esteron. Both very good games. Not ones I'd own, simply because I've got other games that take up my time, but they're games I'd happily play again. You'll notice that the biggies are not there. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I will happily play in games of D&D. I am at the moment playing in a game of D&D. I will happily play games of Pathfinder if it happens to be on and happens to be there. I'll play these games. But in terms of owning a game these days, it has to be something really, really special to grab my attention, and I'm afraid D&D and Pathfinder just aren't special enough. They're just not special enough to warrant my attention. Not when there are, for me, more interesting fantasy games out there, and more interesting games in general. Which is why they don't appear in this list, and quite frankly never will. But we can't all like the same thing. So that's my top 5. They are what they are. I love them. I haven't fallen out of love with the ones that I originally had in my top 5. It's just that these ones have really pushed themselves into it. Mostly because I'm using them a lot. And I'm enjoying using them. So that's my top 5. I hope you enjoy watching. Thank you very much, and I'll be back soon with another video.